So Austin McBroom is looking to come back into the YouTube boxing scene, and he's already come in again with his Social Gloves 2 event, which, to be fair, his Social Gloves 1 did do well, opposed from the afterwards drama, which happened where it was noted that no one got paid, and it was pretty much a whole scandal. But the event itself was pretty good. There was good fights with some big names, but of course the drama afterwards kind of ruined the entire night. So he's trying to kind of repeat and see if he can find some success again with this event, hopefully without some drama. And of course, he's going to be going up against AnEsonGib, which is going to be a really big fight. A lot of people have been waiting for this fight. And have been looking forward to a lot. Of course, there's been a ton of back and forth and a lot of build up for a long time. It wasn't really sure who Austin would be fighting, or even Gib, if maybe Gib was going to be fighting on the KSI card that's coming up, or if Austin potentially could have been fighting KSI. So we're here now, and it seems like we're going to finally get this fight, and I think it'll definitely be a good one, with both these guys definitely going to be training very hard for this fight.
Yeah, and something really interesting is this is actually going to be a pro fight, meaning this is going to be going on the records. This is actually going to be a meaningful fight. The last fights on the other Social Gloves card were all exhibition fights, so they didn't really have any meaning. Obviously, Gibbs' event ended in controversy, or his fight ended in controversy after he got robbed against Taylor Holder, but that was overturned. But there's going to be none of that this time because it's going to actually have professional judges, at least you think. It looks to be an interesting card. Austin McBroom said he's going to try to get different like rappers and like athletes. Like there's Blueface versus Swaggy P. Nick Young just got announced for an undercard of this event, which is a pretty cool fight. Honestly, it's not a bad fight, and yeah, like you said, Austin McBroom versus AnEsonGib. That's an amazing fight. Some of the like best guys in YouTube boxing and big names. So it's gonna be interesting. Obviously, Austin McBroom's really trying to use Gib as a stepping stone to get to KSI, like obviously Jake Paul was trying to do back in 2020. It's kind of reminiscent of that, as he wants to use KSI to use Gib to get a KSI later this year.
Yeah, and this is going to be Gib's second pro fight. Of course, the infamous fight with Jake Paul, how it definitely did not go his way, where he got KO'd in the very first round. And then how he came back against Taylor in that exhibition and ended up getting the win after the added drama as well, where he pretty much got screwed over and they called it a draw where it was obvious he won. And now he's going to be going up against Austin McBroom on his own event. So it's definitely going to be one to look forward to. And I think it's quite cool the dynamic Austin's going for, where he's trying to get all these kind of celebrities on his card. It seems like he's more, at least diverting a bit more from just YouTube boxers on his card, and he's going to have some other big names in some other industries. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. And hopefully he's able to pay them all correctly, and there's no mess ups there. But I guess we'll get a bit more
I
into
hope
that.
everyone's trying to get paid up front.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I'm pretty sure that's Gib and Deji were the only ones that got paid up front in the first Social Gloves event, so they didn't end up getting screwed over. So hopefully everyone's doing that and actually getting paid properly. And hopefully this is a clean and smooth sailing event where we just get to see like good fights and entertainment, because that's essentially what this card basically is going to be about. And like you were mentioning, there's a lot of possibilities for the winner of this main event. Whether Austin wins, maybe he could get the fight with KSI, of course, if KSI wins his fight also on his card. And who knows where Gib could go from here if he's able to get a win. It would definitely be a huge one. And at this point, he would have beaten a lot of top competition in the YouTube boxing scene and has one of the most experienced resumes and the most fights in general in the YouTube boxing scene. So there's a lot of potential there for any of these guys, and definitely a lot of things happening in YouTube boxing in general. The scene is pretty much going crazy right now with a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much, and YouTube boxing's at an all-time high. We have Social Gloves. Then the week later, we have Jake Paul's fight, his return fight in Madison Square Garden. Then 3 weeks later, we have KSI's event. There's a lot happening with these YouTubers, and it's finally nice to see some events getting put on. And yeah, I think the dynamic of this being a pro fight could also make for some pretty interesting possibilities of an outcome. Obviously, Gibbs struggled as his first pro fight against Jake Paul, and he kind of just was able to just get timed. And it's gonna be interesting to see what approach Austin's gonna be taking, if he's gonna try to maybe come in with more time shots. Obviously, that's kind of his style, is to come in with a lot more power punches, but he doesn't really set up a lot of his shots. I feel like with 10-ounce gloves, and possibly, I don't know how many rounds this will be, but I think the rounds will definitely be a driving factor to this fight. I think the longer it goes, it definitely favors Gib, as he's known for his cardio, his gas tank, his pressure that he puts on everyone, and that could really drown Austin the later it goes, especially if it's 3-minute rounds, because the last one was only 5 rounds, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
The last event. So yeah, if we don't know Austin's cardio, but we know Gibbs. He's fine. He can go. He can put on a lot of pressure, a lot of pacing, and still be fine at the end of the fight. So yeah, I think the longer it goes, it will definitely favor Gibb. I think the power edge is definitely to Austin. He's shown more snap to his punches, more pop, and he also looks probably more technical, I'd say, just because he looks pretty good for his first fight, honestly, on the Social Gloves card originally. And obviously, it was hard to really tell because he's fighting against Bryce Hall. But he had nice footwork. He was very loose out there. He was moving well. And I think he definitely had fundamentals down. And I'm interested to see how this being a pro fight will actually affect this fight. Because that's interesting. We have only seen one other pro fight in the YouTube boxing sphere, which was KSI versus... besides all Jake's fights, was KSI versus Logan Paul. Now we're finally going back to that with these other guys.
Yeah, and also for sure, like, a lot of unknowns, especially with Austin McBroom, because he's only had one fight, and against not necessarily the greatest opposition in Bryce Hall.
What do you mean he's the best?
True, my bad. But, like, there's not a lot to be said, as it was a pretty one-sided fight, and it didn't go the full distance. We didn't get to see a lot of what Austin can fully bring in his full potential. And he's only had one fight today where, in comparison at least, Gibb has had tons of fights, very experienced, fought on so many different cards, under so many bright lights at this point. So you gotta think, at least he's calmed some of those nerves, and this is going to be Austin's first pro fight. So there's a lot of questions coming into this matchup, and I think it's going to be a really interesting one. I feel like Austin's just going to kind of have some aspects of what Jake was achieving against Gibb, where he's trying to time him coming in and pretty much negating his pressure style. But I feel like Gibb's definitely going to come evolved, and he's not going to just fall for the same mistakes that he made previously in some of the matches he came up short. But I think it's a really good test for both these guys, and definitely could be a very big matchup if it's done right.
Yeah, and I think also the weight is something not enough people are talking about, because Austin McBroom actually came surprisingly light against Bryce Hall. I think he was like 170 pounds. Meanwhile, Gibb was, I think, 180, 185 against Taylor Holder. So there seems like there could be a pretty decent weight difference. Obviously, in that Jake fight versus Gibb, Jake was the one who had a substantial weight difference, and that really showed in the fight. He was much bigger, he was taller, and he was just able to use that, his reach and everything, his power, to just outclass Gibb in that first round. And Austin doesn't really have that, so that's kind of going to be interesting to see how that turns out, and how Austin's going to be able to maneuver against Gibb. It's definitely an interesting matchup, and I think this is a great fight for YouTube boxing, and it's been a long time coming. Like, it's been like all the way to like the show start card. They've been talking shit. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk for this fight. Finally, it's actually coming into fruition, and obviously Austin's trying to be the A side, which I guess you could expect, because he's trying to run things like he's doing the Social Gloves event again. Even though the last one, like you said, had some bad moments, especially in the payment aspect. A lot of those guys seem to have not got paid what they're promised, and it just seemed like their whole approach in general was not it, because they I think he thought he was getting 2 million pay-per-views, which is completely how can you even think about that?
I don't know how you could come to that estimate over your first card with just kind of a bunch of influencers, not proven at all. It's just come on, like, at that point you're asking to fail, and you're asking just to not succeed. So hopefully he's smartened up a bit in that case, and he's a bit more realistic into what's happening, and everyone else on the card knows what they're getting into.
Yeah, like, in fairness, like 100,000 pay-per-views, like, that's not a failure. But when you're promising guys $5 million, and you're asking Lil Baby to walk you out, and you're getting DJ Khaled to perform on your card, and you're getting all these commentators and whatever, you're doing all this stuff, it's like, it makes no sense. Like, it wouldn't have been a failure if he just, stuck to a regular boxing card, but he had to make all those promises and just do way too much for no reason, which is just a completely bad idea, and completely ruined his reputation in the boxing world, which he's seemingly trying to get back kind of now. as he's saying that he's compromised with the fighters on the last card, which is a very interesting selection of words. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they've got paid, if they've gone like 10%. Imagine.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. He's trying to run things, but I don't know how it's going to end up.
Trying to clear his name now, which might not be working for some people, but he's running another event. Hopefully there's going to be no funny business this time. Hopefully he's going to be learning from his mistakes. He's not going to do that again. He's not going to promise anything that's not going to happen. And I think Gib definitely, I don't think he would accept a fight that, he's not obviously not getting paid. He got paid for the last one even, so.
Yeah, no way.
Gib's at least definitely getting paid. Mm-hmm. And the other guys, they probably know the situation of the last one, so you got to think they're getting paid up front.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, the other fights, so Blueface versus Nick Young, I think that's quite an interesting fight. I don't know how many people would have expected it to be on Social Gloves, but I think it makes sense. Both guys are pretty big, and I feel like matchup-wise, it's pretty, like, reasonable size, even though, of course, Nick Young's super tall, 6'8", but still, and it's going to be a fun fight for sure. Definitely just full entertainment. And Blueface has actually had one fight prior to this, so he's going to have some experience. But this thing where it's kind of celebrities from everywhere that Austin's doing, I think it's definitely a cool idea. And he's kind of diversifying the scene a bit, where he's bringing all these other people, and it'll definitely bring different more like different audiences actually from different areas, which is pretty cool. And they might be, get into YouTube boxing, and that might be a good way to grow even the scene. So we'll see from there. So that's definitely a good matchup.
Yeah, even another athlete that he said was getting on this card was Le'Veon Bell, who's been talking on Twitter a lot that he's going to fight this and that, but now he's actually going to be doing it on Austin's card, which is kind of crazy. And it's interesting that he's getting these athletes in, and he's going to be getting these guys from different worlds. I think that's definitely a good idea, and it's interesting. We saw the blueprint that Jake Paul's been doing against, putting himself against athletes, and then obviously now it's real fighters, so he's kind of transcended from that level, but still, it's definitely an interesting idea to get guys from rapping and music, and it's going to be interesting to see how this undercard performs. Also, probably influencers. We'll see what kind of influencers he gets on the card. I think there's a couple that have been saying that they want to get on the card. Maybe DDG could be fighting, because I know he's a friend of Austin.
Yeah, and seen it in the gym.
Yeah, seen it in the gym with him. Yeah, so I think that's definitely possible. He was on the last card as well. And he said a couple guys from the last card are going to be on this fight, or on this card. I'm not sure who could maybe get on the card. I think Taylor Holder's been training with Blueface, so I think maybe that could be possible to get him on the card. But I think Taylor Holder had like a massive lawsuit against him, so I don't even know. Also, Bryce Hall had a massive lawsuit against him. I don't know if he would do it again. So I mean, but he did say he's fighting in July. I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, I think so.
Could be on this. Yeah, so there's a lot of different guys who could be getting on this card. And who could have thought like a month ago, because his reputation, Austin McBroom's reputation was out the window. No one thought he was going to be coming back with an event, but look, here he is. He's gonna, and it's interesting because I think all of these fights, at least on their website, it said this is gonna be like a card full of like pro fights. So it might not have like influencer fights that are exhibitions, which is interesting, because I mean maybe that Blueface versus Swaggy P fight, is that going to be pro as well? That'll definitely make like for an interesting card if we have all these YouTubers and all their fights are pro. Yeah,
I wouldn't hold it to it though. I wouldn't say for sure it's gonna be pro, but if it were to be, that would definitely be a cool aspect of it to have. And it's quite funny how Austin's like trying to address the sort of failure of Social Gloves now, and just how much of a mess up it was at the end, trying to save face of it. And I guess it worked in a way, because he's still having a whole card now with a bunch of different fighters that I guess trust him to an extent to even be on the card. So there's that one point. It's quite crazy how after everything that happened, he's still having a full card with huge names on it, and like all these people from all these different. I guess he has a ton of connections. So
yeah, he did say that he has like a new team with guys that are actually experienced in boxing, and they've been in the boxing world, and they know what they're doing. And if he had these guys back in the first event, none of that would have happened. But I don't know. It's hard to trust him at this point just because of what we know. And it's hard to take a guy at their word when their actions don't really follow through with what they say. But I mean, he's putting on another event, and we're gonna see how it does. It's gonna be interesting to see Social Gloves. Also, McBroom versus AnEsonGib. It's definitely a great fight.
Yeah, and the stylistic part of it is Austin McBroom's kind of, from what we saw against Bryce Hall, more of a like power puncher that goes for big shots and tries to land them. He has pretty good speed, and his accuracy is pretty good as well, as he's able to clip Bryce a ton of times, hurt him very badly.
Yeah.
And Gibb more utilizes his cardio to apply pressure and keep it on his opponent. And he kind of has that style where he really likes to back down his opponent and wear them down as time goes on. We especially saw that against Taylor Holder, with as time he's ripping to the body, he's going to the head, using combinations head to the body. So good job there from him. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it matches up against Austin's style and what Austin has learned. As of course he has from that first fight a lot less time than Gibb has had in total in training. So we're gonna see what he's picked up, what new stuff he's learned. I guarantee he's not gonna look the exact same as he did before. He's definitely gonna have to have improved, and probably same with Gibb as well. And
Yeah.
some
They've
of
both been working since that last event.
yeah, definitely he's had a lot of time now, like a year exactly. I think pretty much. So he's gonna, and he also has a pretty decent footwork. He was able to find some angles to hit Bryce Hall with. Obviously, comparison against some of Gibbs' opponents is a bit tougher, but just in general, I think it's gonna be a good one where it could really depend who's able to enforce the style more dominantly.
Yeah.